Right, hello everybody, hello listeners, and a big hello to Kit and Zane. Thank you for joining us on this week's Sky Sports Golf podcast. Guys, it's been a while since I've seen you both. Kit, first of all, how much have you been enjoying this lovely sunny weather? And I'm sure you've had some time to head out onto the golf course.
I'm delighted to be back on the podcast for the first time. It's been a little while, but I'm glad to be back. The sunny weather, everything is better when the sun shines out. I was fortunate to be in Barbados about 10 days ago with the first event of the Legends Tour season. And since I've been back, it's been amazing. I kind of got the real bug for playing golf again about a month, 6 weeks ago. So I've been playing a bit of practice. It's a lot easier when the sun's out to do it. Let's put it that way. So yeah, everything in the world of golf in general is good. Professional games exciting at the moment. A major coming up this week. And in the UK, we can get out and play some golf because it's sunny.
I know, it's amazing. Zane, I've played more in the last 4 weeks than I think I probably have in the last year. But look, you're a jet setter. You've been traveling the world as you always do. How's life for you, though, at the minute, Zane?
Yeah, great. Kind of following from what Kit said there. Actually, you know what? First of all, can I just say thanks, Sarah, for. I'm going to say this because I know that he'll listen back just for bringing a little bit of glamour and professionalism to the Sky Sports podcast. Josh does his thing, but yeah, just thank you for that, first of all. And from a golfing standpoint, like the Masters gets us going. That kind of gets the juices flowing, and now we're coming into now the sun has actually come out. Now it's like golf season is here. I mean, I'm obviously doing quite a bit of coaching, and it's just everyone turns up with a different spring in their step to get out and hit balls and work in their game, and then this major's kind of snuck up on us a little bit, like we're straight into a major week. So yeah, just happy days. Like I feel like golf is back basically.
I know we had to wait till May, didn't we, to see the sun in the country? We did have to wait a lot. It's been a long old winter, but like you said, it does feel nice that the sun is finally shining. As you said, lots to look forward to and lots to discuss. A busy show for the next hour or so. Kit, we're going to start though with a reaction, of course, to Rory McIlroy's blistering performance at the Wells Fargo Championship, his fourth title. I've been on site a couple of times for that event. I mean, to see the confidence that he exudes confidence on that layout, Quail Hollow, it's just a wonderful fit. Seriously, though, how impressed were you with that performance last week? In particular, when you look at the driving stats and performance in round three, how mesmerizing was that McIlroy performance for you?
I think that's as good as we've seen Rory in recent memory. And I'm thinking, maybe 2, 3, even 4 years. He's had his big moments, but for the entirety of a week, of course, the scoring was great. And that little stretch of 8 under through 8 holes from the 8th in the final round was sensational. But we know the good with Rory is great. It's what's the bad? What are the misses? The driving was brilliant, as you said, in the third round. The 2 middle rounds, no drop shots. If Rory McIlroy's not making bogeys, he's winning golf tournaments. And that's what we saw. And he just ran away from Xander Schauffele. I think we are going to touch upon a little bit the fact that it was a 2-horse race and it was Schauffele, the other horse. And I think a lot of people will have looked at how it was set up going into the final round and would have had a lot of confidence for Rory. I'm not surprised he won it. I'm somewhat surprised and incredibly impressed and buoyed going into a major week by exactly how he won it, because that was vintage Rory. The stuff we've been saying for the last decade since he last won a major. If Rory has his A game, he's the best in the world. And you can only say that so many times until the last time he brought that A game was too long ago. That's a reminder right there of what Rory McIlroy is capable of when he's on his game. And with the way everything's set up going into this week at Valhalla, I mean, that is tantalizing from a timing perspective, and with 3 majors still ahead of us as well.
It's hugely positive, as you say. Zane, from a technical standpoint, look, we had sort of those concerns in the run-up to the Masters, then at Augusta, and he's always open about this, isn't he? He said, I'm struggling with my swing a little bit, went to see Butch in Vegas, had the left miss with the iron, said he was hitting his driver and woods really well, but with the irons he was struggling. From a technical standpoint, how confident are you that some of those issues have now been resolved and he can push on and hopefully have this golden summer that we all hope and want him to have?
Like any of us playing golf, from someone who's been playing golf for a year to now, you can be 30 years into your golfing life. You're always working on something. So anyone just getting into the game, just brace yourself for that. You're going to work on your game forever. And Rory's no exception. He's kind of come to the Masters, and I think us being part of the media and golf fans are talking about, oh, this is what a recipe this is of Butch Harmon and Rory McIlroy working together. You know, okay, not his full coach, but he's gone and got his opinion. He's going to have given him some of the secret sauce, and it's like anything. You know, when you can, you got to get the ingredients in the right order. You can't just. It's not just a throw them all in. And at the beginning, that's a little bit what it was. Like watching him at the Masters, you see him working on his backswing. You know, that kind of built into his pre-shot routine. You know, so that tells me as a coach looking at it going, he knows what he needs to do, but he's not got it yet. And to perform at the level that these guys perform at, you can't be stuttering along just making do. Like these guys are like racehorses. Everything's got to be flowing, perfect, happening automatically. And it was just a little bit too early. And now, a tournament under his belt, some more time on the range, back at a venue which he likes, all of a sudden, maybe just gets into some previous feelings, sees some shots that he's seen before. And as Kit said, it was like, vintage Rory, feeling good, taking on some amazing shots. And, watching that last round, I saw that Xander Schauffele's comments kind of before the last round was like, well, I've got the lead, but I've got Rory breathing down my neck. That almost plays into Rory's hands, because that's what we get from Rory. Then he stands up on the first, launches a drive down the middle. The crowd are like whooping up and going mad for it because that's what they want to see. Puts it in there close, birdies the first, and you just think like he's drawn level. And this is like Rory's playground now. Rory's not your, what we get out of Scotty Scheffler is something different. He's like, to wind it back, he's like your Jack Nicklaus. He's just relentless. Going to be there all the time, and he's going to do it in that style. Rory is our Arnold Palmer. Like, he's going for this. Whether this is a right or wrong decision, he's taking it on, and he gives us these wow moments, and that's what we got this week. It was just absolutely vintage Rory. It was fantastic to see.
It was scintillating. And Kit, you look back at the team event, the Zurich Classic with Shane. How nice is it to see Rory almost playing like a kid? He talks about this so much, the work he's done with Brad Faxon over the years. He wants to feel that kind of exuberance again. How nice is it to see him full of confidence, but just almost enjoying his golf? He definitely had yes, he's playing great, but he's definitely got a bit of a different spring in his step right now.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think the win at the Zurich Classic and the environment in which that win came is a huge part of where he is right now a few weeks later, because he just had a good time. And with Rory, you feel like it's just get out of your own way. Just have fun. I've seen there was a story a few years ago when JP was still on his bag and he wasn't playing very well. And JP said to him, "What are you doing? You're Rory effing McIlroy," to kind of like, just play golf, man. Just chill. Like, see the shot, hit it. Think like you were 14 years old playing 36 in a day. And that, I think, is kind of what we saw. And Shane Lowry deserves actually a fair bit of credit for getting Rory to play in that event and bringing that out of him. Now, for Shane, that might have been selfishly thinking, I want Rory on my team because I want to win the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. But for the rest of us as golf fans and golf viewers, there's something more there. And I think maybe even Shane, as Rory's friend and knowing him as well as he did, maybe there was an element of him going, do you know what? I can just switch up his mindset a little bit here on the golf course. We can have a good week, have a laugh. We all saw the celebrations afterwards, singing Don't Stop Believing, absolutely sensational. But I think the approach he took mentally to that, how he played, has enabled him to free himself up a little bit. And the mental thing's massive. We know, of course, we know what Rory's going through a little bit technically. The visit to Butch, as Zane said, absolutely right. You have to get to a good place technically, but it's mental. And I think you mentioned, Zane, the comments that Xander made about Rory the night before the final round at the Wells Fargo. Rory was making very similar comments about Scotty Scheffler back at the Masters, going, how do we kind of compete with the guy when he's playing like this, essentially? Compare and contrast that to the comments of Rory straight after the win last night, where Amanda Balionis was interviewing him and said, last time the PGA was at Valhalla 10 years ago, you won the week going in, you've done the same. And he said, the stars are aligning. That's a pretty bullish quote the week before a major, kind of to go, well, you're alluding to the fact that this is how it unwound when I won at Valhalla 10 years ago, and it's aligning to be exactly the same. Yes, he then said, okay, there's some other world-class players to beat, but that is a stark difference to where Rory's mind was a month ago at the Masters as to where it is now.
Honestly, though, every time a major comes around, we're all Rory fans. That he's such a a universally popular figure in the game of golf. Every time a major comes around, I mean, I think I've backed him for every major for the last 3 years. I just, because it's a heart emotion, isn't it? We just want him to win. Zane, though, honestly, given that comment, do you see 10 years ago Valhalla, his last major championship, the form he's heading in now? Are the stars aligning for McIlroy ahead of this year's PGA Championship?
A bit like yourself, like this is like our favourite conversation coming into a major. Is this going to be Rory's week? Like, and as much as he's disappointed in his delivery so far in the last 10 years, we're still having like, this could be the one, and when's he going to break that drought?
It's got to be this week, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be this week, exactly. So like, I think if we were being like really well, there's actually two ways of looking at it. One way is to say, well, he hasn't won one for 10 years, and he keeps doing this story. What's to say there's going to be any different? The other way is to say, this is Rory McIlroy. He can't lose majors forever. At some point, everyone he doesn't win, does this one become more likely? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to buy in here and go, Valhalla, a decade on, off the back of a great win. This is Rory's week. It's going to happen.
I'm as confident that Rory will win, and I'm not saying he will, but I've got as much confidence of him going into a major or more than I have for the last 5 years. And our hearts always want him to win. We love him. He's great for the game. He's an ambassador. He's a superstar. You want him winning majors. As much as I love Rory, I've probably been one of the pessimists around him in terms of going into majors where, there's always the chat. And I haven't felt hugely confident about him, particularly at the Masters, but even at other majors over the last 4 or 5 years. And this, for a number of reasons, the confidence, the mentality, the visit to Butch, the fact it's at Valhalla where he's going to have very, very strong memories from 10 years ago. He knows he can win a major at that event. You look at the rest of the contenders, and really, there's 3 big names we all know. Obviously, it's Scotty Scheffler, but 3 weeks off. We think has just had a baby. We've heard the reports out, but it's not been totally.
That's not easy, that one, haven't it? Yeah, that's not
so
easy.
That's a big, huge upheaval. Yes, Scotty has been dominant this year, but he's become a dad in basically the 7 days leading up to the tournament for the first time. That's huge. And Brooks Koepka, defending champion, USPGA is his playground. Did win recently on Live, but wasn't great before that and didn't really do anything at the Masters. So beyond that, you look at Xander Schauffele, he's probably the 4th best player in the world, and he's just taken an absolute pasting from Rory. So you just hope he doesn't put too much pressure on himself. He continues to not completely freewheel, because there has to be strategy there and he has to not chase every pin, but to give himself that freedom and the opportunity to enjoy the experience of actually playing golf and being in that environment, and not just pressuring himself, well, it's a major, I have to win this week. Because I think if that process and that environment is right, which it seems to have been more so in recent weeks, that's when Rory plays his best golf, and we get the vintage stuff that we saw just last week at Quail Hollow. That it's been a little while until we've seen him at that level.
Kit, if we could somehow just get you Rory's number, can you just voice note that to him to send him a little WhatsApp?
I'm not saying anything I'm sure he doesn't already know. He's Rory McIlroy. He's one of, if not the best player in the world. Like, he knows all this stuff. But as we know, knowing something in a sporting environment and being able to do it, if you could bottle when you're in the zone, if Rory could bottle what he did through those 8 holes, hey, we'd all be rich if we could do that. We'd all be great players if it was that easy. It isn't. That's the reality.
We'd all be Scotty Scheffler, basically.
Saying it is interesting. You were sort of nodding and agreeing. There's so much optimism for Rory. There's so much optimism for Rory McIlroy, but the Scotty Scheffler dynamic is interesting now because he's been so dominant. But honestly, as Kit said, if reports are to be believed, there hasn't been official confirmation from the Scotty Scheffler camp, but we believe he's just become a dad for the first time. His head's, he'll get back into the game zone, and he'll be there, and he'll probably you don't know, we could well go and win another major championship. But how tough is it to get back into game mode given that hugely positive but life-changing moment that's just happened for him? That could be a big advantage for Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, it has. He's been on this upward trend, which is like seemed unstoppable for so long, and and it seems like there's nothing can affect this guy. And I think any parent out there will understand there is one thing that can knock you off your course, and that is having a baby, having a child. And as you say, it is a positive thing, but it can go one or two ways. And it's hard to see how it's going to make him any better because he's so good. So this is going to be like a real big question mark. I mean, we all know that he puts into perspective, and he talks a really good talk from that point of view. But it is just different. Like, your mindset is different. You've got all of a sudden the world doesn't revolve around you anymore. It revolves around this small person that you're looking after. As much as you try and maintain, this is what I do, these are my systems. This small little person just changes all of that. So, people do respond differently. And it was funny when it would have been 10 years ago now. I was still kind of on tour, and there was an older it was a senior tour pro we were playing golf with down the road, another pal who was, on our way up back onto the tour from the Challenge Tour. And he said, boys, whatever you do, just think about this. Like, get married, that's okay. But whatever you do, if on your own, just don't have kids. And my son was literally 3 weeks old. And I was like, Nick, we had one 3 weeks ago. And he was like, okay then. And it was like, oh, to be fair, what he did rang true for me. But it's my fault. I just wasn't good enough. But to that point, like, you see it, people have a baby and they play fantastically, and then it can become difficult because we don't know what's going to go on behind closed doors. Hopefully, some of those dollars that he's put in the bank this year, he's going to distribute that well enough to get some help and get all the right people in so he can maintain these amazing performances that he's been delivering to us.
Zane, you said he can't get any better. The nappy factor is the thing. We've heard it. You allude to it there. People do often pick up performances when a baby's born. Various psychological reasons for that, or just because Scotty Scheffler continues to be on an upward trend. What if he does just get better?
I mean, what if I don't see it? Then I think the golf that he's been playing recently has been untouchable from so many different aspects. We love how Rory plays, and we go like, oh, Rory's when he's on his best player in the world, but anybody's playing golf who shoots 8 under for the back nine, which most of those guys can do, are the best golfer for that 9 holes that they put that stretch in. And when we rewind it back and we think about Tiger Woods is of our era is the best golfer that we've experienced. And what made him great was that when he's off the pace and he's in 30th place, that guy is going up at 4:30 to go through his normal routine, to go do his 2 hours in the gym and prepare because he was on his own course, and that showed up over time, that relentlessness. He didn't just turn up when he fancied it. He turned up when he really didn't want to. And I think we've seen that out of Scotty Scheffler. Like, Scotty Scheffler it's been the time that he's done it across. We're chatting recently, who's the best player in the world at the moment, Nelly Korda or Scotty Scheffler? And it's so close. Obviously, Nelly's on a great run, major 5 wins and so forth. But the only thing, a differentiator for me at the time was like, Scotty just done this for a longer period of time. But the actual golf was like, well, if you're arguing, like, Nelly's not actually lost. Like, Scotty finished second, so he lost at Bay Hill. He actually lost the tournament in that stretch. So I don't know. I just I can't see.
I could see him getting better. Just purely tee to green. We know the stats. It's superhuman. Putting, he's still just above average this season. He's improved. He holds 1 or 2 more putts around, which is conceivable. He's improving in that area, working with Phil Kenyon, and there's no drop off in the tee to green game. Then we are starting to make comparisons to a certain person. We're not there yet. We're not. But all it needs is that little incremental increase again in the putting.
But we're kind of missing that unwritten rule is that when one bit of your game gets really good, something else drops off. Well, chip-ins, give him a long game.
That's very true.
Speaking like a true golf pro. Well said. Look, guys, I want to do. We're going to obviously talk more about the PGA Championship upcoming, and obviously we've got a special guest appearing very shortly. Kit, just coming back though to, it's worth just noting because, and we could spend the next hour talking about this, but our listeners will be glad to hear that we won't. All the politics surrounding golf right now at the minute. There was all these reports that McIlroy was going to head back onto the PGA Tour Policy Board. He's now not. Some alleged differences between a couple of the members, not least Tiger Woods. Rory shut those rumours down a little bit. Yeah, said, maybe there were a couple of differences, but we're fine. It's all good. Cantlay and Spieth also potentially as well, some acrimony. He's on the subcommittee, but Kit, do you not feel like, do we just want Rory to effectively play golf now and almost try and stay away from the politics a little bit moving forward?
To an extent, but that's what he tried to do. We all saw the Netflix series that featured him, and he was like, do I need to focus more on my golf? And then he did, and actually it didn't necessarily yield any better results. And obviously now he's back in the conversation and he's done what he's done the last few weeks. So I'm actually not sure how much of a correlation I draw between Rory's good form and him not being involved in the politics of it. In fact, I'd go the other way and say when Rory feels like he has an influence on bigger things and he is an ambassador and a representative of the game, that almost inspires him to be a little bit better. I think you could argue if you look at the correlation of when he's played well and when he hasn't. Just in terms of the status of the game and where it's going, I think we're in a really, obviously it's a hugely controversial moment and we don't know where it's going to go. But the longer it drags on, the harder I feel it is to get a resolution. And the fact of the matter is you've got 4, 5, 6 very big personalities involved in these conversations, with that being on the committee and in this subcommittee. And there's 2 camps of different ideas of what the future of the game should look. And when you've got 2 different camps like that within one side, being the PGA Tour side, and then they're having to go and negotiate with the PIF, I'm not sure how you reach a compromise with the opposing body, if you like, when you're trying to compromise within your own group of PGA Tour pros and on those committees. I think the PGA Tour need to get their ducks in a row before then going and deciding, well, what do we want this outcome to be with the PIF and what do we want the future of golf to look like? And right now, I just can't see that happening, certainly for the 2025 season. I think we're getting to the point where any change is going to be 2026 at the earliest. And then the world's a very different place 2 years down the line, isn't it? So I just think the longer it goes on, the more difficult it is to get a resolution, and the more different opinions there are, as there currently are on the PGA Tour side of things. I don't think we're getting any closer.
Yeah, that's the worrying part for me, Zane, is that sort of dissent within the PGA Tour ranks and that player power, and obviously that gets said, the difference of opinion between some of the big stars. We don't seem any closer, do we? How do you view it now? How do you view Rory not being allowed back onto the board now in that subcommittee? But how do you view that picture that there's some big name personalities who just aren't on the same page?
Yeah, it's interesting. Rory's comments not getting back onto the policy board, and then later on he kind of said how him and Tiger, we see these views very differently. We're going to remain friends, but we see it differently. That has had a big play there, because if they're seeing this from if you come outside the golfing world, negotiations happen all the time, and and it's a business looking to to fill the same space. Well, you've got like the PIF who are going to see their business going this way, and then this is either right or wrong, we don't know yet. And then the PGA Tour, they see it because this is the way they've always had it. Again, right or wrong, no one knows quite yet. So they need to probably actually sit on either side, and then somewhere in the middle there'll likely be some compromises to which either side are not completely happy with, but there'll be opportunities come out of it. And it seems like, this is just a personal view from what we've seen, a bit of the roller coaster and up and down that Rory's gone on, which was kind of PGA Tour till he dies, and then it was like when he came away from that, it was a bit like actually the PIF is going to be a great influx to the game. It just seems like Rory is a tiny bit more on accepting of something coming together, and it again from the outside in, the PGA Tour have got their view on it, and this is what they're going to put forward. It will very likely not finish up that way, but that's part of negotiations, where you sit at the time. And I think, kind of as Kit said, it's just not ready right now to move on.
You need a starting point for negotiations, and the PGA Tour don't even have the starting point because they don't know what the vision they want it to be in the future is. That's the issue. There's no starting point almost to sit down and go, well, this is where we see it.
Their starting point is we're the PGA Tour, we're going to do what we do, and then I don't know, I understand what you're doing over there. Like, that's not great, but they're being forced into accepting it because, I mean, again, only in my view, if you look down the list, you know, if there's 2 tournaments on, like this week, where like it's great because we've got Valhalla, got some really big names there, and then, but if you go a regular PGA Tour event against a Live Tour, you know, it's interesting. Like, you're really split in where you're going to put your attention. You know, if you've only got a certain amount, but then as soon as an event like this comes up, these elevated events, to be honest, like, you know, as a golf fan, the way we consume it, like, that's what you want. That's literally the best, and then they can't compete whatsoever. But
to be fair, the viewing figures don't suggest the golfing public are really torn on what to watch. They're still tuning into PGA Tour. You can make the arguments that viewing figures are slightly down and whatever, but it's a different age. People are consuming it in different ways. But if you just do a comparison to who's watching the PGA Tour and who's watching Live, there's one that's getting all the eyeballs, and it isn't the new one.
But you mentioned the audience figures, and to me, the TV viewing figures and the fans' apathy towards the game right now, that is massively concerning for me. And I think we all agree, yeah, like Zane, you said, you know, the PGA Tour, you watch the elevated events and they're incredible, and Live aren't getting the viewing figures yet. But still, the game is divisive. We've got some quality players playing on Live. We want them all effectively on the same tour, and everybody kind of, well, the majority of golf fans agree that should be the way forward and that should happen. But we are a long way off from this. So it is a case of watching this space, seeing what happens. But sadly, it doesn't seem like that coming together is imminent. But yeah, we'll keep talking about that, I'm sure, for the next few months. Welcome back to the Sky Sports Golf podcast. Now, as promised, our interview with Michael Block, the club pro who burst onto the scene at last year's PGA Championship. Sky Sports digital golf journalist Ali Stafford spoke to Michael last week to ask him about that fairy tale week last year, how his life has changed since, and how much he's looking forward to appearing at Valhalla.
Michael, thank you ever so much for joining us. We're just days away now from the PGA Championship getting back underway. Just how excited are you for your major return?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of funny because you always kind of think about how it's going to feel and what it's going to be like. But until you really kind of get on the grounds, like I know right after this interview, I'm actually headed straight to Valhalla for the first time of this year. And, you know, once you start seeing the stands and just how big of a tournament it is, all of a sudden it's a whole nother vibe out there for sure. So I'm excited to get over there this morning and get the preparation going.
You mentioned the preparation there. Just how different has it been going into this year's tournament compared to this time 12 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had that much time just to practice, to tell you the truth. I'm really excited because I got in really early, and I'm just by myself here in Louisville. I'm literally just going to go over by myself the next 2 days and hit and practice and just really grind. Try to get my, you know, find the great swing thought for next week is really what it comes down to. You know, I kind of go day by day on swing thoughts and see what's working, but I'm just going to try to find something over the next days and then hopefully next week have it.
I'm sure there'll be a little bit more interest in your game and your performance this time around compared to this time last year. If we can just go back a year, if I may, and look back to Oak Hill, going into that week, the week before, the days leading up to it, what were your expectations going into that week?
I didn't have too many. I had goals, and really I had just those 2 goals. Make the cut was a huge part, and be the low club professional, so I could stand on the green on 18 on Sunday afternoon. And both of those were accomplished on Friday because no other club pro made the cut, and I made the cut. So I was pretty much deadlocked on that, which was cool. So I got to really relax on the weekend, even though it was the most pressure I ever had in my whole life playing golf.
You mentioned that pressure there. Going into the tournament, the casual sports fan may not have been familiar with you and your story. At what point during the week did you go, hang on a minute, there's suddenly quite a lot more interest in me?
Yeah, when I did another walk and talk live on TV with Jim Nantz on the weekend, that was a pretty surreal moment. And then when I'm walking down the fairways and I've got all these New York fans screaming Blocky and chanting Blocky on Saturday in the rain, that's when all of a sudden it kind of hit me what was going on. Every player in the locker room was just kept on, you know, saying, hey, get after it, have fun, keep doing it, keep doing what you're doing. And then it just started escalating more and more and more throughout Saturday and then Sunday, when Sunday came along, and, you know, obviously I was paired with Rory, which was the coolest thing in the world. Yeah, that was something I had never in my life had expected or wished upon. It was the best thing that ever happened.
You mentioned being paired with Rory there on the Saturday evening. Obviously, it was filmed that moment when you found out you were going to be paired with Rory, and the response was quite something, wasn't it? when you left that interview, and I remember that going, "Oh boy," as you walk off. How do you then spend the next 12 to 18 hours before that tee time Sunday?
So the interview was done. So that was like nobody really kind of knew that the interview had actually finished. And then Dom, the guy that's interviewing me, he goes, "Hey, Block, by the way, I just saw you're paired with Rory." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding." I mean, like, of course, I mean, and I thought he was kidding at first. And that's why I kind of do a spin and I leave because the interview would have been done, but they kept on recording it. And it's pretty funny that they actually got that on film. But yeah, it was that rest of the 12 hours or whatever it was before I teed off. I didn't tee off actually till 2 o'clock the next day, so I had so much time to think about it. But I was excited about it. A lot of people told me how cool a guy Rory is, and I really enjoyed the time that I had with him. He was fantastic. The crowd was fantastic, and then I had one of the best days of my life the next day. So it was pretty lucky.
I mean, we'll get the lucky part. I'm not so sure about, but the Sunday, the crowds for you. Like I tried to get to the first tee for that tee time of yours with Rory, and just couldn't get close because it was 20 deep, and at the bank at the back of the first tee, it was packed. I'd not seen anything like it all week.
Yeah, no, and remember it was really muddy too because it rained Saturday, so everyone's just out there in the mud. And I went over that scaffolding, that kind of bridge that I walk over. The players walked over, and then I'm getting the chills even thinking about it right now talking with you. But I mean, coming over those, and then everyone starts seeing me and they start chanting it, and then I get over there and I'm just like, wow. I go, is this really what it's going to be like? And it was for 18 straight holes. That's how it was. And I couldn't believe that my game held up under that. I can't believe I shot 71 that day. I still can't believe I did that.
The moment of the week, not just for you, probably for the tournament itself, was that champagne moment at the par 3, the slam dunk ace, the viral moment. Like, again, your reaction to that was incredible. I can imagine you could barely believe what was going on at that point.
I mean, I think I reacted how most like any normal human being, like, being put into that position and having that happen. I'd never been there before. I'd never been in that circumstance. I don't know if I ever hit too many shots in my life in front of that many people. I'd never played with Rory McIlroy in my life before. And then I'd never had a hole-in-one in my life in a tournament. So think about all those things that, everything that came together in that one piece in one moment in time is just insane. And that's why I was in such disbelief by my face. And I definitely didn't see it. And the funny part was John, a lot of people give my caddy crap because he has this rangefinder out. He can't see it, and he's trying to find the ball. He thought I went in the bunker short. Yeah, so it was pretty funny. The only one that saw it on the tee box was Rory, so he saw it right away, which is pretty cool. But he's got a lot better eyes than I have.
And given that moment, again, it would have been quite easy to let the adrenaline get the better of you and then drop shots over the closing stretch. But then that clutch up and down at the end for the par to get you back in the field this week. Just going into that final hole, were you truly aware of the situation and what you needed to potentially to get that tied 15?
I had no idea, to be honest. I had looked at the leaderboard only one time earlier in the week, and it failed me miserably. I had a really bad shot on the second round. And so I told John, my caddy, I'm not looking at leaderboards anymore. I knew I was in 8th place going to the final round, and I knew I was 1 over going into the last hole. So I figured that was really, really good. The only really thing I knew about was being tied for 4th got you into the Masters.
Right.
So I knew that. I did not know top 15 got you back into the PGA. But I did know about Augusta. And so that was one that I'm like, wow, And so I kind of thought I had to shoot around 1 to 2 under to do that. So I knew I was kind of out of that. But so I was just really trying to just have fun with the crowd at that point and just try to get up and down because I knew the crowd would go crazy if I could get up and down. Got very lucky on the chip. I mean, I didn't try to land it just barely in the rough and trickle out. I tried to land it in like the fringe. But I mean, when I saw the replay, I'm like, you got to be kidding. I mean, if it got stuck in that rough, which most of the time it would, I'm dead. I would have been dead, right? Because it's downhill, running away, and there's a tier right behind the hole that you can't see on TV. So how it trickled out of the rough, and then it trickled in the right side of the cup on that putt too. I mean, yeah, I guess that's why it was a pretty good story.
I mean, the days that followed at Oak Hill were chaotic, busy, eventful, to say the least. I'm not sure anyone could be prepared for that kind of suddenly mass attention. How did you feel the sudden change and shift of dealing with all the interviews, the extra expectations, commitments that came your way?
Yeah, what these guys do, like what a Scotty Scheffler does on weekly basis and still plays the game that he does, and Rory, and man, what Tiger went through his whole life. I can see why, they act certain ways, when they're like, you know what, they're not going to do this interview or that interview or whatever it might be, or how Tiger's a little more recluse and doesn't like to be out. I get it. I only had it for a couple of weeks or whatever. I mean, they've lived their whole lives doing this, and they play amazing golf doing it at the same time. So I have so much respect for those guys traveling the world constantly on the road, away from their families, and playing great golf. I couldn't do it. I'm on the road right now for 3 straight weeks, and I know it's going to be tough. I'm only, maybe 5 days into it right now, and I just know I can't wait. My family's going to show up on Tuesday here at Valhalla. I'm really excited about that. But yeah, it's what they do is pretty remarkable.
You mentioned the family there. Just how much has the last year been different for them in terms of, their husband, their dad is suddenly getting all this extra attention?
Yeah, they thought I was cooler because I had more Instagram followers. That's for sure. I think that's the only thing that made them. That's about it. No, they still. That's actually I think one of the coolest things in the world. How your kids just still treat you as dad, and you're not. They still don't listen to you. It's the same thing, and my wife still gives me crap. It's the same. That hasn't changed too much. It's just cool being able to go out and like be in an airport and people they know you and want selfies and stuff. And I can't wait to go out to Valhalla and sign a whole bunch of autographs and take some pictures and just have a good time with it. And I'm just I was getting a little stressed out actually, like earlier in the week, just because I was doing like 7-8 interviews in a day. And my wife's like, just be careful what you're doing, take some time and get back to that blocky mode. We kind of call it blocky mode, where it's kind of like just having fun. Like me having fun plays good golf. Me kind of stressed out, that's not, I get tight and I get quick, and that doesn't work in a golf swing. So I'm trying to get all the interviews pretty much done today and then next Tuesday. And then I've got Monday and Wednesday just all to golf and me vibing with my family. And I've got a lot of friends out here this week again, like I did at Oak Hill. And we're just going to have a good time. We're going to go out to dinners, sit around the fireplace or the couch and have a drink, and then go to bed and then wake up and go play major championship.
If you reflect on the last 12 months as a whole, if there's kind of one like pinch me moment or oh my God moment since the PGA through to this week, what would that be?
The coolest thing is I've had probably, and I'm not kidding, like probably 20 to 30 of those. Some really, really cool ones. I mean, obviously getting to know Tiger Woods, getting to know Jack Nicklaus, having actually in the same day, Tiger talk a little trash to me over a ball. Having fun with me. And then that night, Jack Nicklaus made a 30-foot putt in a pro-am with my putter in the same day, and then Michael Jordan texted me winning that tournament with DJ Khaled. One of the coolest things, I went to Doha, Qatar, and did a video shoot with Max Verstappen and Checo with the Red Bull Racing team. I was there for 3 hours. And then I went to the Australian Open, which was a really cool thing. So the only bummer that I have yet to do, and that's why I'm coming back one more time, just to let you know, I've never played in the Open.
Interesting.
That's honestly one of the biggest check marks that I don't have. That are my goals that I don't. I came over last year to the finals in Scotland at Dundonald Links. I'm coming back again in July 2nd for the finals. I'm signed up for a couple of the courses there just outside of London. So hopefully I get into those. And it's nice and dry and firm and fast and super linksy, because that's what I want.
That'd be brilliant to see you over here in the UK and bring in that UK audience, because you did certainly generate plenty of interest over here for sure. Finishing off, looking ahead to next week itself then, just what you said last year, the goal was to make the cut and to be there on that 18th green on Sunday. Is it a similar kind of goal for this week, or do you have more or less goals given everything that happened last time around?
There's really no way in God's green earth I do what I did last year. I don't expect that at all. But I actually asked my wife the other day at dinner, and I was like, hey, babe, what should be my goal for this year? And she goes, Michael, just make the cut. Like, she just gave me the typical, you just get back to what you do. Just try to make the cut and go from there. And I'm like, you're right. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to try to post a good first round, keep it going for the second round, make the cut again. Yeah, if I'm standing there on the final, green once again with the champion, so be it. That would be fantastic. I feel like I have more pressure in the way of a lot more eyes on me this week, but at the same time, I feel like I have a little less pressure than I ever did before because I've already done it.
And at least the club pros, you've almost given hope to all of them in the field this week, the other 20 as well as yourself, because they look, Blocky did it last year, so why can't I do it this time around?
That's 100% true, because I'll tell you what, most of them hit the ball better than I do, so they definitely have a chance.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I'll let you go, Michael. Thank you ever so much for your time, and we wish you the best of luck next week.
Cheers. Hopefully I see you guys in July over at the Open.
Okay, we wish Michael Block all the very best for the PGA Championship. Certainly fun to watch him a year ago, providing all that drama and excitement for the fans. So, guys, let's just touch more on the PGA Championship this week. We've obviously touched on McIlroy, gone big on him. We're all optimistic. We're all in unison that McIlroy is going to win his 5th major championship this week at Valhalla. Scotty Scheffler as well. How will the nappy factor affect him? What about the other contenders? Koepka, a lot of love for Koepka heading into this week. Who are your other big chances, your big picks for this week's PGA?
I think Ludwig Oberg, Koepka obviously as well. You've got the big three. Scotty rightly installed as favourite for me. Rory and Koepka not far behind him. Then I think you've got a bit of a gap to the rest. And to be honest, leading the rest, I think Ludwig Oberg right now has elevated himself to that position in the game. And I think his stats set up really nicely for the challenge that Valhalla is as well. It's a big boy golf course. USPGA, they've toughened themselves up. It's been courses that have suited long players, almost a bit more US Open-y in recent years with single-digit wins. Not quite as hard, but maybe with just the pure length has probably done that to an extent. And I just think Oberg sets up really well for it. He's 3rd in total driving, 23rd in driving distance. We all know what a supreme ball striker he is. Sort of 73rd in strokes gained putting, so he's efficient. Every bit of his game looks good. It doesn't feel like there are weaknesses. The one question mark you would have had is that he's inexperienced. And look what he did at Augusta at the Masters. He was right there. And but for Scotty Scheffler, he might be the new Fuzzy Zeller having won on his Masters debut. So for me, I think if you're looking below those top 3 who are rightly the favourites by a little bit of a distance over then the next lot, I would go Ludwig Oberg.
Zane, I know you're not looking past Rory McIlroy, but who else is catching your eye heading into this week?
Well, I mean, kind of what Kit named some great names there, all in the conversation. But there's just been looking through and just chatting to people, just as golf fans, all my pals. The one name that just doesn't come up at the moment is Jon Rahm. And I know that he's not been he's not been on his amazing form, but this guy is Jon Rahm. This guy, that's a name, and this is a guy who does seem to have to work harder to be in the conversation most times than anybody else, and he's going to be hating it. He's going to be hating that he's not in the conversation. Everyone's talking about Scotty Scheffler being the best player in the world, and then Rory McIlroy is now turning it on, because this is the guy who sits in that bracket of he sees himself as the best week in, week out, regardless of where he is in the rankings. And he's had a bit of time for it. His new pastures, had a bit of time for that to settle, got on a hold of that. So, as Kit said, it's a big boy golf course, and that he can bring that game, and he's got that resolve. It doesn't with Rory, we know that if he's on, he could win next week by 8 shots, 10 shots. But if he's a bit off and something, there's a chink in his armor and his swing, he might not contend. We hope he does, but he might not. I'm just saying that in case he listens to this. But with Jon Rahm,
regular listener,
of course he does. But with Jon Rahm, that it hasn't all got to go his way to dig something out of the dirt and get it done. So that's one. That's one. My one name. The other name.
Before you go on to someone else, Zane, I just want to quickly ask you on Rahm, because you're right. He seems to have just completely fallen from the golfing Discord, and obviously him not really being a factor at Augusta hasn't helped. How do you assess his form right now? Because he's been top 10 in every live event.
Yeah.
But you've got to take the fields into account, and he's not won one. If he was playing PGA Tour and you looked at that form, you'd say he's in very good form and he just needs to get over the hill, and maybe he's been beaten by better players. It's a big field.
Yeah.
You go that many events when you've been in around the top 10. Is that a bad sign almost that he's a bit like Xander Schauffele. He's in there in contention or in and around every week, but he's not got a win. And that's against lesser fields than what Schauffele's been doing that against, essentially.
Well, what you tend to see quite a lot is, I mean, okay, first of all, if you could kind of compare the field that Liv has now to what we saw this week, to be honest, the talent is actually quite similar in terms of world-class players in there. So if he's sitting inside that top 10 and he's in there, he's there or thereabouts. You know, I know they're both short-term fields, but
if he's outside the top 10, who's beating him? That's the thing. I get the very top of the field, but if he finishes 8th,
maybe, right? But what you got to think is, with John, there's a big difference between John Rahm losing his game and it just ticking over. That's two different kettles of fish. Having played, you kind of know what happens is there's before you play well, there's a foundation, and it's a little bit like I'm playing quite well, not scoring, but I'm still figuring a little bit. I've not completely lost my game, and then what happens is you build up, and then one week you just go like, yeah, it's that piece, and it clicks in. And then you go and win, right? And everyone goes, it's amazing that you won. Like, your form's not been there. But as a player, you're like, actually, there's a foundation building up here, which is like, in the past, you would see normally a good bet from, maybe it's changing a tiny bit just recently, but a big player who's been playing okay, but not won, is normally a good bet because they're hungry for it. And that's kind of where I'll go with that. I mean, other players, like Xander Schauffele, his form's going to be a bit up and down and so forth. And yeah, he's putting good performances together. And he could have a foundation and not win, whereas someone like John Rahm, that's just different. As long as he's not lost his game, he's dangerous.
I also think as well at the Masters, and he was quite open about this, he didn't look himself. I think it was the first time, obviously, since the move, everyone in the world of golf teeing it up there, all the other big name players, and he admitted, didn't he? I mean, a couple of the guys blanked him. It affected him, I think, mentally, psychologically. He didn't look comfortable for me, body language all that week. He's got that out of the way, new week. And Zane, I think you're bang on with that. Rahm, for me, has never kind of got that. He never almost got that credit that he deserves for the phenomenal talent and the success he's had. And I think that he's not been in the equation. He's not been talked about. Could that help him? Does he go in slightly under the radar? Could that help him this week? We don't know. We shall see. Kit, I did want to pick up because you've got you got a nice little outsider that I think you ought to share with our listeners and viewers for this week.
Well, I've got 3. I mentioned one before we started recording. 3 at triple-digit odds and better that I think are just really nice fits for the golf course in terms of they drive the ball beautifully, solid with their irons, and they're good putters because you're going to need to hold putts. Firstly, Stefan Jaeger, I think he's been solid since the win. Obviously, the one man that's beaten Scotty Scheffler in the last few months. And then he's been solid since then, miscut, and then been around the top 20, the 3 events after that. So he's playing solidly. Taylor Pendrith, I think, is built to be like a big game hunter. He could be, obviously, to a very lesser extent, but you look at someone like Brooks Koepka, who does better in the majors than he does in normal events. I almost see Taylor Pendrith, the way his game is built, how much he's reliant on being a big hitter and good driving, but is also a good putter at the other end of it. He could be someone along those lines as well. He's at like 150 to 1, I think you can get him. And Kurt Kitayama, who, excuse me, who under the radar actually finished 4th in the PGA last year. And again, good driver of a golf ball, has won a big event on the PGA Tour, so might not be as scared getting into contention or in the lights as some other of these outsiders might be. So I think if you're looking for sort of a bit of each way odds, which I quite like at the majors, because you've got a big, deep field. We all know the favourites are the favourites. In modern history, it tends to be someone in the top 20, top 25 of the world that's winning major championships. And it's just who's it going to be amongst them. I like looking for a bit of value. So Stefan Jaeger, Taylor Pendrith and Kurt Kitayama are my triple digits outsider each way fancies.
Love it, Kit. Love it. Because Zane's looking a bit bemused. He's like, there's no... You're not convinced, are you, Zane, by those 3?
I'm not. I mean, I don't know how. I'm not a big gambler myself, so I'm presuming they're like an each way thing. Like for me, none of those guys are going to win. That's like an each way thing. Like
no, they're not. They're each way. I'm looking for value each way. Okay. Like I say, we know what group of golfers the winners coming from. PGA's got a history of some outside winners. That's a few years ago now. I don't think we're seeing that. But I just like looking further down for a bit of fun, a bit of each way. Like we've got loads of DP World Tour, European Tour stalwart players that
Yeah.
are getting the chance this week. Like Sebastian Soderberg on red hot form on the DP World Tour. What's he going to do in a major on that kind of form? Like there's loads of Keita Nakajima. I think obviously talking about
you can't just name every player in the field, because then you go back next week and then you're like, I know.
I'll pick the winner. I'll pick them each way.
Just real quick. My kind of outsider is, I mean, I wouldn't say he's not a dark horse, but anyway, but Max Homer. But my only reason for that was that I watched him on the range at Sawgrass during the PGA Championship. He was working with his coach, Mark Blackburn, and they it was very much like a coach-player like battle. Like, they weren't falling out, but there were a few little bits just watching them work on the range. And there was that moment that I guess anyone's had golf lessons or worked in their game relate to, where they're just trying to do something, and then someone like you get it from a friend or from a coach, and his coach said, "I do this and this," and he just hit a couple of shots, and he just looked at his coach and he just went, "I can't effing do that," and and it was like a real moment. Like, I can relate to that. We've all been there, and then. There's like a little piece in this game, because we know Max likes that nice little soft dropping to the right fade. But this is only my view from the outside. I've not spoken to Mark in particular about this issue, but I've spoken to him about some other stuff. Is that when he gets a little bit across the line, so at the top of the golf swing, the club points to the right of the target at the top of the backswing. And then I think from there, he finds it a little bit trickier to then hit the fade. And then he's actually playing 2 shots, draws and fades. And when he's played his best golf, at the top of his backswing, the club points a little bit to the left, so you would call that a bit laid off. And from there, it's a much easier position to fade the ball from. And it just looks like the last couple of weeks, I've just been like, because sitting on social media, just looking at golf swings all day, even now I still do it like anybody else. And just been like seeing that nice little position at the top of his backswing. It just looks like he's moving quite well. His golf's kind of showing up a little bit. That's kind of my outsider, purely on the fact he's got a nice golf swing, which we know, even, as a golf pro, we're told, it's not all about the golf swing, but this pick is all about the golf swing.
How impressed are you by how Max Homer has sort of defied the narrative throughout his career? Because as journalists, and you put someone in a pigeonhole, you box them, you go, he's got a poor major record, he can't do it. Homer's someone that's come up through the levels. It took him a while to get to the PGA Tour, took him a while to win. And he's really done it almost the old-fashioned way of working up. And now he's finished top 10 the last 2 majors. Yeah. He seems to really defy those expectations from someone who's kind of been there from a playing and with players as a coaching perspective. How impressive is that to do and have that belief?
Yeah, it's really impressive. He's actually, if you think, someone like Max Homer is like the anti-Rory. So Rory's kind of bursting onto the scene, and it's just easy to him. And it's almost like, how can he even mess it up? Like, how can he not win this major? How can he not do it? Whereas Max Homer, he's like the anti-Rory. He's just like, doesn't know how to do it, goes away, works it out, steps up the level, and then gets into that level. And then he's like, okay, yeah. And then there's like the next level, can't do it. And then he goes away, steps up, and now he's gone from getting onto the tour to staying on the tour. To then he's gone to like, how do you become like a winner? And he kind of went out, worked it out. Then he went out, and then it was like, how do you become a multiple winner? You're just a winner of one. So he's gone away. And he's worked out that part of it, and he's elevated himself to a winner and a Ryder Cup player who his team can trust. The next frontier for him, which is like Tommy Fleetwood, is major championship. What's the breakthrough to go to that level, that next level? So yeah, in a funny way, he's like the anti-Rory, but at the end of the day, let's see. After 10, 20 years, will Max Homer, hopefully Tommy Fleetwood, that's why I drop his name in there, will they have majors under their belt, and we look back and go, wow, what a great journey that was. But it'll be a completely different style to what we all want, which is we just want people to come in like young players, come in and be flashy, win tournaments by miles and be this amazing talent. But there's like it or not, there's another way of getting there, which we as golf fans we forget sometimes.
There's beauty in that grind.
Great personality.
It really is.
The game needs that. I think people love him. Great on social media. Popular guy. Right, guys, we are nearly out of time, but I do just want to get your opinion on. Obviously, Nelly Korda, of late, we've been waxing lyrical. Zane, you touched on her earlier. Sensational. Those 5 straight wins, was going for 6 last week on the LPGA Tour. Didn't get it done, but props to Nelly Korda. Just amazing to watch her right now. Rose Zang with the victory. It was a great battle between her and Madeline Sagstrom. Rose Zang now a two-time winner on the LPGA Tour. But Kit, how much would you like to see? We know she's a superstar. She's got maturity beyond her years. She's a class act on and off the golf course. Could we potentially see a bit of a Rose Zang, Nelly Korda rivalry at the top of the world rankings? And how good could that be for the women's game?
I definitely think there's the potential for it. And if that does end up happening, it's massive. Like, rivalries are great in sport. And, you know, you often see golfers, they're almost a bit too friendly. When was the last real golf rivalry? Phil and Tiger back in the day. Since then, everyone's a bit friendly. Liv coming along has actually reintroduced that in a kind of way. Like, one of the funnest events to watch last year was Rory and Patrick Reed going at it in Dubai, because there was that edge of a rivalry. I do think, you know, we need narratives for our sport, and the women's game has got the narrative of Nelly Korda doing brilliantly at the moment. They can ride along on almost the coattails of the uplift in the popularity of women's sport, particularly in the States. Caitlin Clark being the great example of how she's transcended her sport. Golf, it can get in on that act because there are personalities in it. We can tell those same stories, and rivalries are really important. And I think from an American standpoint, and we know the LPGA, it's American, the big golf market in the world. One of the criticisms you might have had of the LPGA Tour and the best women's players, and it's not a criticism, it's harsh, it's ridiculous to say that, was that they were lacking one or two American superstars that people could really, on that side of the pond, identify with and gravitate towards. You've now got Nelly Korda, you've potentially got Rose Zang. And to be fair, there's a great supporting list of international stars as well. I think the LPGA's in a real sweet spot. And hopefully, just by layering up these narratives and additional storylines, it can really go to the next level. I mean, Nelly Korda was at the Met Gala a couple of weeks ago. That's huge. That's, you know, I don't know what the Met Gala is. I just see loads of pictures every year of people wearing weird dresses. But it's big for.
The dress was phenomenal. She looked so
it was a lovely dress. It was, ironically, it looked like it had roses on it or big poppies or something. So I don't. But yeah, I think the LPGA now has to jump on this and take advantage of the narratives and get itself out there. But the potential, the characters, the storylines, and the talent is there. I just think it's a really exciting time for women's golf.
Zane, it is right now, isn't it? It's unbelievable to watch. Rose Zang, though, when you see her from a sort of coach's perspective in terms of the technical, the physical ability, but what do you see with that calmness under pressure, that maturity, which is 20 years of age, that maturity beyond her years, almost kind of like that Zen-like state that we talk so much about with Scottie Scheffler. I mean, she has the potential, doesn't she, Zane, to really push on and dominate that tour, win multiple major championships through her 20s?
Absolutely. I mean, to already have had a second win, and it's a style in which that happens. You know, it's not being given to her. You know, she's this week, like, the scoring was just phenomenal. You know, like, it was a 2-horse race, but the gap between the top two and the next was absolutely massive. They were playing their own tournament, and as you say, it's a style, like the calmness. You know, I think now that she's probably actually now arguably far up into a still young professional career, that to get the wins, she's almost pushed through the scar tissue point of it. Like, she knows she's a star now, like, and that's the bracket she lives in, and how that links into women's golf at the moment is just brilliant, because like, women's golf has really found its identity over the last few years, and it's becoming such a great watch. And then could we now have a rivalry? You know, could that now be a thing? That's absolutely fantastic to have this young player who's now really, you know, got the Nelly, who's played some of the best golf we've seen in recent times in the world of golf, and now we've got this young player who we're looking at thinking, wait a minute, Nelly just played some of the best golf I've ever played, and we've got this young player who's might like ruin her story here, you know, and got potential for it. Not just because she's hits great shots, you know, because she's got this fantastic golf swing, which she has got, but like the calmness that she would do it, you would think she's not even buying into this story of like, Nelly's this great player. She's just going to go and do what she needs to do, and it's all those tools. She can, like, you know, great tee to green, can hold putts under pressure. We've seen a couple of things which have not gone her way, but she responds really well. And she's already won 2 tournaments. So to her, like, I know people say winning's hard, but when you know it, you've got your formula for winning a golf tournament. And that's the same as it goes up. And she's got no reason to question that formula, because she's like, I've been doing it as an amateur, and then what I've done is I've tried that in the professional game, and that formula that I used to win as an amateur works against all this lot as well. Oh, okay, I'll just keep doing that, and it all seems to point towards that's what's going to happen, you know. And it's great, and the women and the way women's golf is at the moment, like Kit alluded to, like it's so international now. There was this chat of like, oh, you know, that maybe golf needs more Americans. Like, no, it's pushed through that. It's nonsense. It's actually brilliant to watch it. It's all different nationalities, all different cultures, and then you know, like, and then as you kind of touched on there, like women's golf has got like it's out on a stage which is not even just in golf. Like getting the invite to the Met Gala and all that publicity it brings to it. That's what, you know, like it or not, us guys are not looking as good as Nelly Korda is at another a media industry event or whatever's going on. It's just not happening. And to have all these things all culminating, and there's more and more eyes getting on the women's golf. Finally, the one thing that has been so great across the whole of golf the last few months is that it's been performance is still the key. That's still tip of the iceberg. When the performance is good, that's what gets realised, and everything else comes along with it. We have all this chat of, you know, fractures in golf and so forth, but like it or not, Nelly Korda playing unbelievable golf, Zang playing great golf, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, that is still where the attention all gets dragged to, like it or not. So, and that's been like nice from someone who's been in golf for a long time. But the key to all of this is still performance wins out over all the chat, all the politics. Good golf solves everything.
Well said. And that is a nice outro for this week's pod. Guys, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Zane and Kit, thank you for your time. Enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you both soon.